Hello everybody and welcome back to Analog Vernacular. We're back again for another playthrough in the Persona series, and this one has been a long time coming. This time we're playing a remaster of Persona 3 Portable. This remaster is being released on just about everything this time, so everyone has the chance to play this one. It's going to be coming out on platforms like Xbox, Xbox Game Pass, Steam, PlayStation 4, and Nintendo Switch, so hopefully you'll all be playing along with me. So I wanted to make this video introducing this series for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to let my viewers know how I will be approaching my playthrough and what my goals are going to be. And two, I wanted to preempt the playthrough with some thematic and philosophical background that might enhance your viewing experience. The Persona series is very rich in philosophical, mythological, and theological inspirations, and they're woven together masterfully in these games. So we'll talk about some of those frameworks so that your experience with the game will hopefully be enhanced. So let's start with my history and my approach to the game. I've only ever played Persona 3 once in the past, and it was quite a long time ago. The version I played happened to be the portable version that I played on my PlayStation Vita, so this experience will not be a new one for me. Although I will make it clear that I've forgotten more than I remember in this one. I pulled up my saves on my Vita and looked at my clear data, and it looks like my original playthrough came in at 70 hours and 39 minutes. My main character was at level 77, and the date on that save file was all the way in January of 2016, so that was a whopping 7 years ago, almost to the day. Loading an even earlier save before the finale of the game, I found that I had a compendium completion of 70%, I had maxed out the social stats of all three stats, academics, charm, and courage. And as for my social links, I had all of them but 4 completely maxed out. The ones that I didn't quite make it on were Emperor, Fortune, Temperance, and Aeon. I think that that's not too bad, especially considering that in this game, the developers truly did not intend for you to max out all of your social links in a single playthrough. So that leads me into my next topic. Many of you know that I love playing games on harder difficulties, and that's going to be no exception here. We'll be playing Persona 3 Portable on hard difficulty. It's pretty widely acknowledged amongst fans that the hard modes of the Persona games have basically gotten easier with each numbered game, so if this game in its remastered form has not been rebalanced, which I don't think it has been, then we can expect this experience to be quite challenging, and I fully expect that we will have some failures along the way. My goals in this playthrough are going to be pretty ambitious, and because I am keenly aware that I am being ambitious here, I need all of you to view these as aspirations that I have for the playthrough, rather than a promise of what will for sure happen by the end of the playthrough. My ideal playthrough would be me beating the game on hard difficulty, with maxed out social stats and maxed out social links. I've already mentioned that this game was not designed with the intention of maxing out social links in a single playthrough, so yeah. In subsequent games, it has become a lot more easy and a lot more possible for players to do this, but that was not the case with this one. So because of this, I'm not going to promise this will be a max social link run, because so many things could go wrong, and those things are exacerbated by the fact that we are playing on a harder difficulty as well. It's completely necessary that I follow a guide in order to make this even possible, and from what I have seen, there are many places where things could go wrong, or things that I could miss that could knock us off track. I'd also like to mention that if you are playing this game for the first time yourself, I highly encourage you to play it without the pressure of trying to max everything out. Just play the game naturally and enjoy the journey. I truly do believe that this is the best way to first experience any Persona game. I think that a subsequent playthrough is the one where you should try to go for full completion. Of course, as always, just play the game however you want and whatever's going to make you the happiest. Now, let's discuss a bit of the storytelling framework in the Persona series. So much of the history of storytelling is built around a universal human experience. Long before anyone formally studied narratology, certain storytelling conventions were being used around the world almost independently of one another because somehow the distilled human experience was shaping the way that we were crafting our stories. Many of these conventions would eventually be distilled into what we refer to as the hero's journey, also known as the monomyth or the study of hero myth patterns. This was popularized by Joseph Campbell and his book on that subject. Most people have at least heard of the hero's journey as a framework for storytelling, and many writers use it as a guide to shape their own stories because it somehow gets to the heart of cathartic human experiences, and this leads to satisfying storytelling and character growth. What you may not know about Joseph Campbell is that he was greatly influenced by the psychology works of one Carl Jung. And Jungian psychology similarly is a huge influence on the Persona series, probably the most important shaping factor to the game. The title itself, Persona, comes from concepts of Jungian psychology that talk about the human self being made up of the conscious persona and the subconscious shadow. The persona can be thought of as a complex set of masks or personalities that an individual can take on as they present themselves consciously to the world. When we are in different circumstances, we act differently. What is our ego like when we are alone? Do we act differently then when we are in a professional environment? Some of us are almost completely different people when spending time with one group of friends versus another. Sometimes we're forced to put on a mask and act differently depending on our environment. In some ways, having the ability to have many persona means that you would be well equipped to deal with any situation because there is a mask you can put on for every problem you could face to help you deal with it. The shadow on the other end are the things about yourselves that we hide, the things that we may be ashamed of or do not accept in ourselves, that we may be otherwise forced to suppress in order to meet the norms of society. The shadow is emotional in nature and cannot be controlled. We may suppress it into our subconscious because we are ashamed of it, but that does not mean it is gone. It continues to fight the self, or the ego, while we consciously present our persona to the world. Now imagine if the collective conscious and subconscious of mankind's ego could be made manifest. If something physical was created from the will of the human experience, what might that look like? And that is what Persona explores in each of its titles. The persona that the main characters use are physical manifestations of their conscious selves, and in the case of the protagonists, often referred to as the wild cards, they are capable of donning several persona at the same time, which thematically means they are powerful because they can don many masks to deal with the situations before them. The shadows are manifest as the enemies you fight in the game. In the case of the general enemies, these are a collective representation of humanity's shadows rather than necessarily one person's. But as many of us know, singular shadows do turn up in these games. In Persona 4, a huge part of that game is our party members coming face to face with their very own shadows, a physical representation of the things that they don't want to accept in themselves.
Who are you? I wouldn't think that. Yeah, right. How long are you going to keep deluding yourself?
That game asks the question of whether or not it is healthy to suppress these darker sides of yourself, or if there is power in accepting all parts of yourself, even the parts you wish to hide. It answers that question by saying you are a more complete person when you accept yourself wholly. The only way for you to fully gain the power of your persona is to accept both sides of yourself.
You're me, and I'm you. When you get down to it, all of this is me.
In Persona 5, the game asks the audience to shake off the chains of society, to rip off the mask, or the persona, that holds you back from being your true self. This once again means accepting your shadow, and in doing so becoming free from the constraints that society puts on you. We'll have to keep these ideas in mind as we play through this game, and by the end we should be able to find how this game explores these same ideas in both similar and completely different ways. Now let's talk about tarot cards for a minute. While Jung rarely referred to tarot himself, he did recognize that the concepts of tarot fell in line with his study of archetypes, and there are many books and writings that have drawn parallels between Jungian concepts and the tarot. The reason for this is probably because tarot were born of some of the same universal concepts that led to things like the hero's journey, meaning that the concepts are simply universal to the human experience. Tarot is heavily used as a framing device in Persona games. The short of it is that the number tarot tell the hero's journey. Each card represents a part of one's life and has positive and negative meanings. When doing a tarot reading, if the card is pulled face up, then it takes on the positive aspects of the card, and when pulled upside down, the card represents the bad aspects of the card. In Persona games, you will find that each social link that you interact with will be assigned a tarot, and usually the story that is told about that character will explore some of the positive and negative aspects of that card's meaning. I'll share an example of one of these from Persona 5 and discuss how the tarot influenced the writing. Let's take Yusuke as our example. So Yusuke is represented by the Emperor Tarot. The Emperor exudes control. The Emperor shows hard work, discipline, and great self-control. There are connections between the Emperor and ideas of power, law and order, and father figures. A reversed card can display a loss of control or authority, or show a level of immaturity. So just me reading that probably brought things to your mind like Yusuke's discipline and level of control over his art whenever he's, working on it. The fact that his story is written around a father figure who takes control and authority away from him in his darkest moments.
I thank you, Madarame. Every reason for me to forgive you has disappeared without a trace at this very moment. You aren't some rotten artist. You're a despicable fiend who wears the skin of an artist.
You tell him, damn Yusuke. And of course,
So this is
that
where you
maturity
two
level.
were. I found these beautiful specimens on sale, and so I decided to spend the last of my money on them. These are purely for the sake of visual appreciation.
These parallels from character writing to tarot can be drawn for every single arcana in every single game, and we will be exploring those as we make our way through this one. So thank you all for humoring me through this very long and probably unnecessary series introduction. I love these games and I wanted you all to have a bit of info and context going in. If you are planning on watching this playthrough, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can also find a link to what will be the full playlist in the description down below. Before you go, also consider supporting the channel through my Patreon or YouTube memberships, or you can check out my merch store at Society 6.